Hey, welcome everybody. This is the Jamie Lou's podcast, and I am really happy to have you with me today. Thank you so much for tuning in and listening. I wanted to really kind of tackle a topic that I think affects most of us at some time or another. For it may not be in circumstance, but it might actually be in our process, in the way that we process things and get through things. So I'm kind of, it's not necessarily titling this, but to give you an idea of where we're going, I'm talking about breaking free from stuck. So I want you to grab your pens and paper, and I want to ask you a few questions, and maybe you might want to write these down. And if you want to just take a minute and think about them, answer them, it might actually help you in this process about what we're going to be talking about today. But I wanted to ask you first, do you feel stuck? I mean, in any way, do you feel stuck in something? Do you feel stuck in a situation? Do you feel stuck in a thought process? If you do, what are you waiting for? What are you waiting for? I mean, are you expecting it to change? And why would you expect it to change? What's happening that you would expect it to change? So, what are you waiting for? Maybe you feel like you're waiting on something. What do you think you're waiting on? If you think something's going to happen differently, if you think it deals with other people, like what are you waiting on? And then what do you think you're being held back by? And I want you to think deeper on this. I don't want you to think just on the blame game, that it's somebody else's responsibility or somebody else needs to do something before I can do this. And what do you think you're being held back by? I want you to actually think about you in your personal assessment of yourself. Take a personal assessment. What is it in you, or what is it about you, or about the way that you do things? What is it that you think maybe is the thing that's holding you back, that you're being held back by? And here's another question. What aren't you doing? Not what are you doing, but what aren't you doing? We could always say, what are you doing to make changes? But I want to know what you aren't doing. So you make yourself accountable. Write these things down. If there's something you should be doing that you're not doing, write it down. We need to look at it. We need to face it. Because the end result, if we will deal with these things, is that we'll actually make progress. We will actually get closer to the thing that we're trying to get to and get unstuck. We want to get unstuck, right? So too often, though, we fall into a wrong stronghold. And I've talked about this before, but a stronghold it can be a good thing or it can be a bad thing. And many times the stronghold is not an external thing. It's not something holding me back, but it's actually a thought pattern. And when the Bible talks about taking every thought captive, that's because thoughts build a stronghold in your mind, and that stronghold can keep you blocked. You can have a wrong tower of thoughts, a wrong tower of thinking built in your mind that keeps you stuck. If you think about this, I live near an airport, and so I'm constantly hearing the planes. I love planes. I've said this before, I'm an airplane geek. So I enjoy it. I like hearing that. I know the different sounds, what size airplanes they are by the sound that I'm listening to. I've taught my grandchildren, especially the little girls, the minute they hear it, they know, and they point to the sky, airplane, airplane. They hear them before I do. And so I'm so used to hearing this, and I've had to fly a lot in the last few years. And so because of the amount of flying that we've done, I've just gotten more curious about that, about flight. And when you think about airplanes and when they are en route to a destination, they begin their journey with coordinates already in the computer for where they're going to end up. So those coordinates are already established. Okay. They already know where they're headed. The goal is established. How long it takes to get there, though, is determined by distance, it's determined by speed and resistance. Okay, resistance. So there's also the element of air and ground traffic. So depending on how much is going on, how many people are flying, how many planes are out there, the actual traffic matters on the ground and in the air. When there's too much ground and air traffic, a plane that is either waiting to take off or they're already en route and they are waiting to land must enter into what they call a holding pattern where they are waiting for permission to take off or land. That holding pattern is a state of mind or a period of no progress or change. Okay? A holding pattern is a state or a period of no progress and no change. So I want you again to be taking this and be thinking about your life, about thinking about the thing that you feel stuck in, about thinking of whatever elements that surround that, what resistance it might be, the speed you're trying to go. Do you have definite coordinates in mind? Do you have a destination and the coordinates are already established? So all of these things are components. So I looked this up because I was so curious about a holding pattern because I felt like the Lord was prompting it in me. I felt like he was stirring it up and getting my curiosity going. So I start digging. And when I looked up what a holding pattern is when it comes to flight, because that's the way I looked at our life. We've got a journey to make. There's a process, there's a takeoff, there's a landing, and there's the journey in between. And we can get stuck never taking off, or we can get stuck and never land. Okay, so those are the holding patterns. So number one, holding, there are three types of holding patterns for airplanes. Number one, holding in lieu of a procedure turn. Now, I want you to be curious with me. I know you're smart people. Think about this with me and take these things that we're talking about. I know I'm saying an airplane, but I want you to think about them in terms of your life. There is a holding pattern that is in lieu of a procedure turn. So in other words, they are waiting for the right directional move, waiting to know, let's say you're going to land and they get a call from the tower that says you can't land yet. There's too much traffic down here. So the timing isn't right. The timing is off. And so they have to then come into a pattern, into a particular, in fact, they're given very specific coordinates. They know there's a particular pattern they go and they either turn right or they turn left and go into a circular pattern to come back around and make another round. And they have to keep doing that until they get clearance to land. So it's holding in lieu of a procedure turn. Number two, an arrival pattern. An arrival pattern. So the manner in which they are to arrive, okay? It's used to control the flow of traffic on the approach. So that means that there is a definite speed and timing to the way and the way that they come in at the height that they come in. There is a pattern to that landing, okay? An arrival pattern. And you have to get into that arrival pattern. Just like they have to, at a certain point, they put down the landing gear. At a certain point, they change the wind flaps on the plane, on the wings, to do something different with the wind, to change the way that it resists the wind and how much wind and force goes over the plane. Then there is a third holding pattern. It is called a missed approach. A missed approach. I couldn't help but chuckle when I thought about these in response to our life and how this mirrors and mimics things in our life. But this is a visual where they visually depict holding following an execution of a missed approach. So that means they did something that was not right. They missed their approach. The pattern was not right. And so they have to go back into a pattern to make that approach again. So some of us have got the coordinates in mind. We've been on this journey. Women liken this to a birthing process. You've been pregnant, you got pregnant, you're now pregnant and growing with this thing. And there comes a point where there's delivery. And delivery can happen at all different times, but there are certain things that need to happen properly in order for that delivery to happen right, to that goes well, and that it's well for the mother and for the child. And then whenever we're talking about birthing, that always takes me into the understanding of what it is to birth in the Spirit. That the Holy Spirit, the scripture says that the Holy Spirit came on Mary, and she was impregnated by the Holy Spirit to conceive Jesus. So, and if we look at Sarah, it says that she had to receive strength to conceive. So there are many things necessary when we spiritually are ready to receive what God is saying to us, that the seed has now been birthed in us. And now there is a process that we will go through in order to take us to a delivery of that, to the manifestation of the thing that God has said. So whatever is going on, whatever the thing is that maybe you feel stuck in, I want us to look at these different kinds of holding patterns. Do you find yourself stuck in one of these holding patterns? Do you feel like you don't know which way to turn? Are you in lieu of a turn in your stuck? Are you in lieu of a turn, or are you in an arrival pattern? You're trying to figure out how do I land this? How do I get from point A to point B in a way that is safe and actually lands the plane? Or did you miss an approach and you're stuck and you don't know, you're not sure how to land properly? You've done a lot of work up to this point, but you're not sure what comes next or how to do it. And so I just wanted us to talk about that for a minute, because there is a way to get unstuck. We mistakenly think that waiting on a word or a prophecy or calling from the Lord is all in God's hands to perform. This is completely false, folks. This is completely false. It's that age-old excuse that lazy Christians use. I'm not calling you lazy. I'm saying there are people who are lazy, and we use Christianity many times as a lazy excuse. And we'll say things like, oh, it's all in God's hands. God knows where I am. God is sovereign. We like to throw out these little patent statements that try to put God on the hook, when God has already said what the plan is. He's already given the coordinates. He's already spoken the promise. With Abraham, what did he say to him? He said, Abraham, I want you to pack up and leave your family in the land of your fathers and go where I'm going to show you. Okay, so Abraham had a choice to make. He could have said, well, God, I didn't get enough details. I don't know exactly what we're staying and along the way, how long do I stay there? And what's it going to be like? And what's the weather going to be like? And am I going to have enough of this? And do I need to pack more of that? He just followed God. He just knew God said, go. And by faith, Abraham went. Okay, there is a trust level of when I say yes to the Lord, that I step out in faith and begin that journey, whether I've got all the coordinates or not, whether I know how it's going to end or not, whether I understand this whole process or not. I am walking according to the faith that I have, that God has called me to something. And since he's called me, he will open the doors. He will make the place straight. He will guide my steps, and he will secure my landing. He will make sure I arrive, and I will arrive and accomplish all that I was called to do. But I've got to do that in faith. I've got to step out in faith, and I've got to believe God and begin going on that journey. I can't blame God if something doesn't happen. We are the body of Christ. We make God's will on this earth a reality by our partnership with him. It's not just God's doing. God has spoken his will. He's given us authority. He's given us the power. He's given us the dominion. It's up to us to lay hold of what he's told us to do and go and do it, to be about God's business, to make sure we're doing what he's called us to do. We don't have excuses. We don't have time for excuses, folks. We need to be about our Father's business, and we need to be about it now. God has given us things that we need to know. I like to call it on a need to know basis. He tells us what we need to know when we need to know it. By doing it that way, it ensures that we remain in this walk of faith. It's a walk of faith. And by giving me what I need for the next step, that keeps me in faith. And I see God work and accomplish that step. But then that same act of obedience and faith comes to take the next step. It's not one step. It's multiple steps. It's knowing that no matter how long this journey takes, no matter what direction the Lord leads me, He's going to get me where He promised He'd get me, as long as I'm following His directives and doing it in His time. If I get out of sync and I'm impatient and I want to take a different route, I will surely miss my destination. I will get ahead of God. It's I wish I would have had it for you. I just thought of it right now, but it's that explanation of, when you set people who do ships at night and they've got nothing but ocean, they have to set their coordinates so that they will arrive where they're supposed to arrive. If you are even off the slightest bit by the distance that the amount of time it takes to get to that distance, that little bit that I'm off grows. The longer I go, the more it grows and the further away from the destination that I am once I think that I've arrived at a place I'm supposed to arrive. I could be miles and miles away from where I'm supposed to be because I'm off that little bit. And so the coordinates are imperative, and staying on God's timing is imperative, and making sure that if He's not given me a new instruction, I'm not jumping ahead. I'm staying in that instruction until He gives me a new instruction to do something different. That helps me stay in the right coordinates for my destination.
Hi, my name is Jamie Luce. I wanted to share with you some information about a brand new book entitled You Don't Need Money, You Just Need God. It's a playbook for miraculous provision. And I want to share it with you because it solves the problem we are all facing right now. The economy is going crazy. Gas prices are soaring. There's wars and rumors of wars. We've got everything hitting us all at once with interest rates rising. You need to know what to do. And so many times we think we need the money, but you don't need money. I'm telling you, the answer is you need God. And that's exactly what we want to teach you through this book. We'll give you practical ways to know what to do and how to do it so that you get answers now. You can find my book on Amazon. You can also go to jamieluce.com. You can also find this book at youdon'tneedmoney, youjustneedgod.com. This book is available today.
If He's telling you, if He's giving you instruction, if he's giving you something to obey, it's because it's necessary. God doesn't give us instructions to follow for the sake of saying, are you going to be obedient? Just for the sake of a test. He's telling you because you need to know. If God's actually speaking to you, it's because you need to know what He's saying. If He's giving me help in a situation, if He's giving me instruction, if He's telling me to do something, just because I might think, well, that doesn't make any sense. Why would I need to know that? Why would I do that? Because God can ask us to do things that just don't sound, they don't make sense to the natural realm. But He says, my ways are not your ways. My ways are higher than your ways. And so we've got to be able to do it the way that He says it. He might be making a course correction for us. And if we don't do that thing that He's asking us to do, we're going to get stuck. We're going to get stuck, folks. We're not going to make it to the place that we want to be. And He's got a fullness of time, a right time for us to be where we need to be. So we've got to understand how to be about our Father's business and accomplish. And I'm not just talking about things that are pertaining to the church or ministry. If God has called you in the marketplace, you need wisdom. You need to know how to deal with your customers. You need to know how to come up with the right plan, the right agenda for your meetings. You need to know who's for you, who's against you. You need to know who to put in charge of what. There are so many details. You need to know where to buy the right things and source your stuff. There's so much to know. And you need God's direction so you don't get stuck. I want you to be in the blessed place. I want you to arrive in the blessing. in the place that God has for you, where there's the land of overflow. But in order to get there, you've got to do it God's way. And we will come up against these holding patterns. The enemy uses, and I'm calling them holding patterns, but I'm also equating a holding pattern to a wrong stronghold of thoughts. If he can get us thinking in the wrong direction, if he can get us not obeying, if he can get us thinking that we know better or that doesn't make sense, and then we don't do what God has called us to do, we're going to get stuck. And we're not going to know how to get out of that stuck place. And so these things are critical to understand how to make it to our destination on time. Maybe you're going to face an opposition or resistance, and you need to not be bothered or discouraged when that thing comes against you. You know, when you're flying and the pilot knows that you're going to come up against turbulence, he tells you ahead of time, okay, we're headed for some bumpy air. So I want everybody to take their seats and put your seat belts back on. Now, he's not telling you that to scare you or to unnerve you. He's letting you know, I'm preparing you so that this is not a big deal. It's not a big deal. And that's what the Lord wants for us. Following his instructions, getting a right thought process about how God instructs us and what he does, dismantles the attacks of the enemy. It dismantles the stronghold of wrong thoughts. It dismantles the possibility of him throwing us into a stuck holding pattern, because we already know there could be resistance, but no problem. We've got that covered. We know what to do. God's given us the instructions to get through that. Right now, you could be thinking, okay, they're projecting a 2023 is going to be a recession year, and they're throwing out these terms, and they're letting people know, yes, we know that gas prices are already soaring. We know that inflation rates continue to rise, and they're giving us all these the signs of the times of what's coming. But God can be giving you instructions right now. He could be saying, there's turbulence up ahead. I want you to take your seat. I want you to put your seatbelt on. He could be giving you instructions so that this is not a big deal. He can tell you, okay, I want you to move this from here to here. I want you to invest in this. I want you to wait on that purchase. I want you to go over here and partner with so-and-so. God will give you instructions so you do not get stuck in a holding pattern, regardless of what's going on around you in the world around us. We can be free from that and be able to still do what we're called to do in the right time, land on time without a delayed landing or a holding pattern that keeps us going in circles. Maybe there are obstacles that need to be overcome first to make the path straight before you. Airplanes have to go to a certain height, because I remember one time I was flying. I don't remember where we were going, but anyway, we were heading up, and we must not have been at our cruising altitude yet. And it was a cloudy day, and we were still coming through clouds. Well, then all of a sudden we break through the clouds, and to me, it looks like we're level. It looks like we're flying level and we're above the clouds. So I thought we had reached the height, but I turned and looked to the right, and I'm thinking, what in the world is that? And it looks like sticking out of the clouds, there are things sticking up out of the clouds, and I can't tell what that is. And I didn't know what that was until we made the flight back. And I was able to see with a clear day and no clouds what I actually saw. Well, we had not gotten near high enough yet. There was an obstacle there over on the other side. There were mountains, and there were a lot of, for signals to go up, all the satellite signal things, and the I don't even know what they're called, all the poles that go way up into the sky. They were all over the tops of that mountain peak. And that's what I saw. And the cloud cover was actually very low. So they were piercing up through the top of that. And so there are obstacles. You have to get to a certain height in order to soar and to be in safety, and to also with other flight patterns going on and other airplanes in the air, you have to make sure that you're on a course, that you don't run into any obstacles. And in that, I want to encourage us that the idea to be able to overcome and not be loaded down with obstacles is to take a high enough altitude. If you get to a high enough altitude, there's very little up there other than you. And what does that mean spiritually? That means come up higher. The higher you go with the Lord, the more time you spend with him, the higher the altitude you take, the more clearly you can hear him, the easier it is in that sailing process, in that flying process, getting to that next destination. The less you're going to have obstacles that you're going to have to face. It's just part of the journey. And it helps us to not run into that problem of having to deal with a holding pattern. Maybe you are so busy doing things that you have that the things that you're doing, the busyness that you find yourself in, there's no eternal value, that you need to make room for a proper and safe approach. What if you have been busy and this is where we have to take personal stock. We've got to look at what we're putting our hand to, how many hours we're spending scrolling on our phone. There's a place in your phone you can go and actually see how many hours a day you spend on your phone. And it's sad because we're on them so much that there are now studies showing that because of TikTok, the amount of time that they scroll through, our attention span has gone down to only a few seconds. Our attention span is only a few seconds long. If something doesn't grab our attention, we just check off. I mean, if I don't grab your attention, most listeners, when they pop onto a podcast, they pop right back off. They don't listen. The attention span is gone. We have damaged the serotonin levels in our brain and the dopamine levels in our brain. And because of that constant hit, we have used up and misused what is supposed to be our pleasure, the pleasure part of our brain that tells us when to take pleasure. And you wear and use them out. And then you wonder why you're in depression and you can't be happy about anything. It's because you've just spent so much time just wasting it. TikTok, now we have young girls who the studies show that they now have tics, whether it's Tourette's or not, but they've got tics now because of damaging that part of their brain. Just that constant flicking through that. And we've got to be diligent what are we wasting time on? Do we watch so much television and we just don't spend time with the Lord? We don't spend time doing the things he's called us to do. I listened years ago. My husband was part of a conference called the Big Conference. It was about finances. And he was one of the speakers. A good friend of ours, Tracy Armstrong, was the one who put on this conference with my husband. And we also had Rabbi Daniel Lapin. And this rabbi was explaining all kinds of things about how the Jewish mind thinks about finances. And in our finances, he was explaining that their mindset as Jewish people is that they look at how many hours there are in a day. So if they have to spend so many hours of the day at this particular business, once they get home, they have this many hours left that they could still be using. So many of them have a second business because they've got hours to use. They're not wasting them on frivolous things that don't matter. Those are valuable hours. They consider the hours of the day very valuable, no matter if it's after 5 o'clock or not. I mean, in the Western world, we just act like, well, you can only have my time from 8 to 5, and the rest of that time is downtime. That's just playtime. Well, God may be calling you to use that time. What if he's saying, I want you to invest that time? What if using that time gets you unstuck? What if using and investing that time and cutting off the things that are hindering you are the very thing that's going to take you out of this holding pattern and take you and give you a breakthrough? What if the idea comes then? I have some of the best impartations from the Lord when I'm waking up in the morning and my eyes are still closed and I'm just thinking, and I have not fully allowed myself to be cognizant of this earthly realm yet, the land I have to get up and walk in, but that I'm thinking about something maybe that I've dreamed. And I think, Lord, was that you? And what does that mean? And how can I use that? And I spend time thinking about him before I jump up and get right to doing the routine. Maybe we need to look at our routine and say, what about this routine is keeping me stuck? What can I do differently? So maybe you're going about this all wrong altogether and you've missed it. And the first time around you tried to do it and you made mistakes and it didn't happen and you're discouraged and you feel like you've missed your approach and you've lost your confidence to go do it again. I want to encourage you today. Just because you've missed it the first time, let's do it again. Let's do it again. Just get back up. A righteous man falls 7 times, but he gets back up. He goes forward again. Let's do it again. God will help us. He will show us. He'll make the way plain before us. I literally could go on and on about the different ways and things that we think and the strongholds that attack our mind or the ways that the enemy uses to keep us stuck. But you're not meant to live in a holding pattern. Listen to me. Waiting on God does not mean that you do nothing. Pastor and evangelist Jonathan Shuttlesworth says, you don't wait, you work. The first time I heard that, I thought, yes, that's exactly right. You don't wait, you work. What does that mean? It means that if God called you to do something, are you doing what you need to do in preparation for it? If God has called you to preach, are you going to a Bible school? Are you getting training? Are you under someone else's ministry? Are you learning? Are you submitting yourself to another leader? Are you investing your time and your talents? And are you working towards that goal? Or are you just saying, yeah, you know, the Lord told me one day, it was prophesied over me one day I'd fill stadiums and I'd be preaching, but you're not doing anything to actually accomplish that? You're never going to get there. You're not going to make it. You're going to be stuck in that holding pattern of thinking it's all up to God and it's not up to you. You have to partner with God. We have to do this thing with him. This is not a solo assignment on God's part only. We have a part to play and we need to get busy doing it. Before King David killed Goliath, I want you to see this. He prepared. How did he prepare? He didn't know he was preparing for Goliath. He didn't know Goliath was in his future, but he knew he was someday supposed to be a king. He had been anointed to be a king. So what did he do? He was king over those sheep. And in the meantime, in his training, he prepared by killing a lion and he killed a bear. And when those things came against him, he did not back down. He went after it. He did it. He did it on, now, to me, a lion and a bear is a big scale kill, okay? But for David, when he came up against Goliath, that lion and that bear was small potatoes. I mean, he started small and he worked his way up, right? Let's look, because waiting is not permission to sit and do nothing. Let's look at what James has to say in James 2:14-26, because he's actually giving a bit of a rebuke here. He said, what good is it, dear brothers and sisters, if you say you have faith, but you don't show it by your actions? Can that kind of faith save anyone? Suppose you see a brother or sister who has no food or clothing, and you say goodbye and have a good day, stay warm, eat well, but then you don't give that person any food or clothing. What good does that do? Verse 17, so you see, faith by itself isn't enough unless it produces good deeds. It is dead and useless. Dead and useless. Now, someone may argue some people have faith, others have good deeds, but I say, how can you show me your faith if you don't have good deeds? I will show you my faith by my good deeds. You say you have faith, for you believe that there is one God. Good for you. Even the demons believe this, and they tremble in terror. How foolish. Can't you see that faith without good deeds is useless? Don't you remember that our ancestor Abraham was shown to be right with God by his actions when he'd offered his son Isaac on the altar? You see, his faith and his actions worked together. His actions made his faith complete. And so it happened, just as the scriptures say. Abraham believed God, and God counted him as righteous because of his faith. He was even called the friend of God. So you see, we are shown to be right with God by what we do, not by faith alone. Rahab, the prostitute, in another example, she was shown to be right with God by her actions when she hid those messengers and sent them safely away by a different road. Just as the body is dead without breath, so also faith is dead without good works. I wrote some examples here for us. So going from believing to believing and action. That is what breaks us from the cycle of a holding pattern and being stuck. Going from believing to believing and action. Abraham, he and Sarah actually had to be physically intimate at 100 years old. 99 and 89 or whatever she was. So it was 190 when she gave birth. To put feet to their faith, they had to do something to produce a child. They actually had to act. They couldn't just say God said it and it's going to happen. They had to do something about it. Abraham had to walk Isaac up a hill and prepare him for a sacrifice, believing in faith that God was going to provide. And God did provide. Joseph worked in obedience and submission through betrayal, through wrong accusation, and prison, never wavering in his integrity through the opposition, all the way to the palace. David never allowed a hand against his enemy, King Saul, and he kept fighting battles on behalf of the children of Israel from the time he was anointed, though he was even chased and hunted down until God finished the word by making him king, both of Judah and of Israel. Reinhard Bonnke has a famous saying, and it says, God goes with the goer. He doesn't sit with the sitter. God is not a puppet master, folks. You are the director of your choices. Another saying that Pastor Jonathan Shuttlesworth says is there is no gift of waiting of miracles. It's called the working of miracles. I love that. There are the actions you take to elicit miracles. There are decisions you make that either agree or disagree with the word that God has spoken over your life. The woman with the issue of blood made a decision not to wait and get to Jesus and not to wait and be sick even one more day. What decisions do you need to make today? What actions can you take? What strongholds do you need to tear down in your thinking? It's time to come out of your holding pattern. Is there a move that you need to make? Are there connections that you need to make? Are there things that you need to get busy learning and doing? Are there skills that you need to sharpen? I'm giving you today the permission in the spirit right now to come out of the holding pattern and head towards your destination. You've heard me say this before, time is short. We need to understand the importance of numbering our days. It's time to act and not time to sit. We need to be about our Father's business, and to be about means to take action. Action is required. No sitting, no waiting. Go and expect. You'll make it there safely, folks, and you'll make it there on time. You will accomplish what God has set out for you to accomplish if you will begin to do it. Take the coordinates. You know, you have to have coordinates if you're flying. You need the coordinates. And so we need to say, okay, Lord, what are my coordinates? What are my directives? What is it that you have for me to do? And once he gives those to you, folks, begin. Take a step of faith and begin. He'll get you there. He'll get you safely. You'll make it to your destination. And boy, the excitement and the fulfillment and the expectation that is fulfilled, all of that satisfaction will come when we step out in faith and do what God has called us to do. It's time to get unstuck. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope this was a blessing to you. I hope I get to see you next week. I want to hear about your testimonies. I want to know about how you've gotten unstuck. I want you to leave me comments. I want you to go on and like, subscribe. I want you to give me reviews, please. I want to hear from you. I want to interact with you. I want to be able to see what the Word of God is doing in your life and how God is making a difference in the decisions you're making and how he's impacting those ends, the ends to what you're looking for. Thank you again for being with me today. It's been my pleasure to spend this time with you, and we'll see you again next week. Bye-bye.